The guys at Avid have asked me today to talk to you about my favouriteest ever capture, which, if I'm honest, has been quite difficult to single it down to one, because I've been fortunate to have caught some nice carp during my career, both from overseas and in the UK. And to some anglers, the most memorable capture is the biggest carp, or perhaps one that's the most best looking fish that they've been after. But for me, it's down to the one carp that I've really put the most effort into catch, I think. And today I'm going to talk to you about a carp that is, or used to live quite local to where I live now, which is in Yorkshire. It's a carp that's known as the Nostell Biggin, and I wrote a massive chapter in my last book, which is called The Adventures of a Carp Angler, about this particular fish and why it was special to me. And what I've got today is not just the story about me catching that fish, but I've also got a load of old video footage that I'm about to show you from my days when I fished on there. And it is really old footage because it was filmed on a really old DVD camera. It's not the best quality, but loads of it has never been shown before, so it's got some really special fish on there, because most of the carp that's in these little bits I'm going to show you are not around anymore, because the lake itself, it's no longer run by the angling club that used to run it when I was on there. It's now been taken over by a different angling club, and it's also had, sadly, a lot of otters on there, and I know that quite a lot of the fish have unfortunately passed by. But yeah, hope you're going to enjoy watching, and hopefully I'm going to be able to put the story across to you in the best ways possible, because this carp was a really special carp for Yorkshire. And when I moved up to the area, there weren't many fish that people spoke about, and it's special not just because of how big it was. It ended up weighing close to 45 pounds for a couple of lads before I ever caught it, but it was special because of how old it was, and also the nature of the venue. The lake itself had been around for many years. I remember there being some old articles written in some of the old magazines by a guy called John Claydon, and when John fished on there in the 80s or 90s, there was a lot more fishing there than when I went on there, because when I went on there for the first ever time, which was 2007, there was roughly 15 carp in 20 acres, and the actual lake itself is just a classic carp water. It's beautiful, surrounded by beautiful countryside. One side's known as the wood side, where there was loads of old trees, and the other side's known as the field side, which was just open field where the farmers ploughed it and cultivated the land. But the lake itself was run by Wakefield Angling Club, and to be fair, they kind of neglected it a little bit, with the greatest respect to those guys, because the club was mostly match orientated, like a lot of clubs in the northern region, and the venue wasn't really suited to match fishing. It was very shallow, very silty, and very much suited to big carp, and anything that was in there, it was sort of left to live off the natural food that were there, because the water itself, you could only fish during the day. There was no night fishing on there at all. I think there were in the olden days, sort of the early 90s, late 90s, but when I went on there was no night fishing at all. It was from around about 6 o'clock in the morning through till about 8 o'clock in the evening, but that changed during the winter times when obviously daylight hours reduced. But I didn't really fish it at all during the winter times. I'd made my own mind up that with there only being 15 carp in 20 acres, and with the venue being close to 50 miles drive from my house to the lake, I was only going to go there mostly during the spring and the summer months, which was going to give me the best opportunity of catching it. But the first time I went onto the lake, I remember having a walk round thinking, what's it going to be like? Because you'd heard lots of different rumours about the venue when I moved there. There was lots of people, or to Yorkshire I should say, lots of people had said that it was a venue you didn't want to go to because things happened to the anglers that went there. There was lots of rumours going around about people having problems done to their cars, etc. There was lots of rumours also going around about fish being stolen from there. So indeed, on occasions, I'll come to in a minute, there were rumours going around that the biggin that I was trying to catch out of the water wasn't actually there. But the first time I went there, I was absolutely lashing it down, and I went with my old carp dog known as Boise, and I remember walking around it thinking, wow, this is a proper wild water, because it was by no means maintained by the club that ran it. A lot of the paths were just old and worn out, loads of holes in them and full of water, loads of mud everywhere, and just walking around the whole of the lake was quite a task. Everything was overgrown. There was loads of old angling platforms, some of which were broken and some of which were very much needing a lot of maintenance. But the swims that were there, you could see there were proper old type carp swims where you could see areas that people had just put a little brolly up or a bivvy up just for the day and try to tuck in nicely behind a couple of rods as the carp came in close, because it was, I could tell just by looking at it, very, very shallow. And the deepest end was towards the road bank, and it was towards the road bank where I'd seen some old photographs of a guy called Nick Elliott, and he's a mate of Bill Cotton's that used to run NutriBaits, and Bill had actually sent me a photograph of Nick Elliott holding the big one from, I think it was the 1980s, and he was weighing, but you could see in the picture I'll put up in a minute, it was, you know, low double. This particular fish now had grown to a massive size, so it was a really old, special, homegrown type of carp that was really sort of Yorkshire's best carp. And in my mind, not just because I caught it eventually, but even to this day I look at it and I think, yeah, that's a proper carp, and one that had grown from a tiny little fry up to the size that eventually it got to. But when I walked around the lake that day and spoke to one or two of the anglers about the fishing on there, it sort of gave me a bit of an insight into the venue and making me realise that, yeah, I liked what I'd seen, and I'll be back the next day and have a go there. And I turned up the next day and I was right at the gate the first, you know, for the opening hours. Got to the wood side. I'd made up my mind that I was going to fish the wood side more than I was the field side, because when I was down there was quite a lot more anglers on the field side than there was the wood side. And I thought, just to start with, I'll just settle in on the wood side, get a little bit of a feel for the lake, and I decided I was going to go about halfway along and try and intercept any fish that might be going from the deeper end towards the shallows, because from some of the research that I'd done, I used to be a member on this forum that was called the Northern Anglers Forum, and you used to see the odd bits and pieces on there about Nostell. It was a venue that was kept very quiet because it was known to be a very hard water. It was known to be fished by some really dedicated anglers, so people sort of spoke about it in a little bit of a hushed way. And I knew that the fish migrated a lot from the deeper end to the shallower end, so I decided middle of the area of the water was probably the best place to start. And I pulled the barrow up that morning. I was there for the start, and to be honest with you, all I did is just look for a couple of clear areas and thought, right, they'll do to start with. I'll put the rods out and leave them there and get my head down for a couple of hours. And I remember being woken up by just a couple of bleeps on one of the indicators, and when I walked to the rods I could see that the line was still tight, the indicators were still in place, but the right hand rod had let out these two bleeps. That was not pointing toward, the line wasn't pointing towards where I'd cast it. So I picked the rod up, wondering what was on the end, and didn't know that I was going to get anything on the end, but lo and behold, I had a couple of thuds on the end and I was connected to a carp on my first ever trip. So, you know, what a good fortune that was, and that was a great welcome and introduction to the lake, because I went on to land it. It was a 21-pound common, and I got some great footage of that fish on the bank, and that was really all that I needed to kickstart my love affair with this particular lake. And the more I started to fish it, the more I got to know about the stock that was in there, and there were indeed around about 15 carp, and from what I could gather there was the big one, then maybe 2 or 3 30s depending on the time of the year, a couple of which were lovely linears, one of which was a common as well, and then there was a couple of mirrors that potentially got towards the 30-pound barrier as well, one known as Starburst, and another one that was known as Mug, which, you know, it was a mug fish. It got caught a couple of 3 times a year. That's all I knew about it. And then there was maybe half a dozen fish that were 20-pounders, and there was, as I went on to find out, a couple of 3 really small single-figure commons, which whilst I fished the lake, I never even saw on the bank, but I did see them quite a few times with my own eyes. But that first trip was a great trip to really put some enthusiasm into me to keep going. And by the end of my first week on the lake, I remember that I'd been really fortunate and I caught 3 fish, the biggest of which was the little linear that was about 25 pounds from memory, So, you know, what a great start. And I left that after that first week thinking, "God, this is good. I'm happy with this." And I kept on going and put the effort in and decided that I was going to fish it at least 3 times a week. And from talking to the anglers that I'd met on the lake as well, the one thing I'd found out about the fish was that they mostly got caught in the mornings. So from sort of first light or gates opening time through to about midday. And at the time I was working in an office at Carp Talk, and I thought, yeah, what I'll try and do then is I'll try and structure things around my work and try and just go to the lake for the morning and then go to work and then come back the next day or you know, or whatever. But it seemed to work for me, and by the end of the summer I'd managed to catch myself another couple of nice fish, the biggest of which was a fish known as Starburst that I managed to catch just before I was about to go on holiday with my kids, because back in those days I was divorced and I saw my kids at weekends, so there was no fishing at all at weekends for me. But I did used to take my kids on holiday as well during the summer, and I always had a history of catching something nice just before I was about to go on holiday with the kids. And I remember rocking up to the lake and seeing a lad who became really good friends with, Darren McGee, and Dad had found some fish around the back of the island where the water was really shallow. You really wouldn't think that the fish would get round there because they had to swim through an area where it was only about a foot deep, and when you saw the size of the big one, you'd have to swim through there with its shoulders right out the water. But lo and behold, when we got round the back of the island, there they all were, nearly the entire stock just grouped up in this small channel. And it was a real sight to see, because you could pick out the fish, and it was the first sight I ever got of the big one. And there he was, just sat in a weed bed about 5-10 yards out with his massive shoulders and his gills just wafting away. And every now and again you saw his shoulders lift up out of the water, and you saw that massive scale that was on his shoulder. And you thought, "Cool, I can tell that's the big one," not just because of the size of its shoulders, but because of the scale pattern. And you could count all the scales up because it was really clear water as well. But that was a really good sighting of those fish around the back of that island. And Daz ended up having to leave to go to work, and he left me there on my own, and I just dropped a couple of rods out really close in and managed to catch myself that fish known as Starburst, which was a real great moment for me because it was my first Nostell 30 pounder. And as I say, it was just before I was about to go on holiday with the kids as well. So that really was the end of the first year's fishing for me, though, because the weed just multiplied on the lake. It really became almost unfishable in many areas. When you went down towards the dam end, it was almost like looking at a football field, because you just see tiny little areas where there was no surface weed, but even below it there was loads of weed. So the summer was virtually unfishable really, and so was the autumn time, because when autumn and winter came round, the club that ran the fishing on there changed the times that you could be on the water. So it was back round through till wasn't until the following year when I managed to get any sort of consistent fishing back on the lake. And by then I'd started to get a good routine on the water. I knew a little bit more about it. I was armed with a lot more information, and so your enthusiasm is a little bit different to the next year. And went back on the water right at the beginning of March, having seen a guy post some fish upon the Northern Anglers Forum of the long common and the big linear, which he caught in a day, which I thought was fantastic fishing. But he'd put the pictures in an open forum. I knew where they were, and the following day I went down there, fished very close to where he was, and managed to catch myself the little linear. And that was a great way to start the year for me on there. And you know, by then I decided that I was going to fish there a lot more regularly. Instead of just fishing there 3 days a week, I was going to try and get there 4, possibly 5 days a week, just doing those morning sessions until about 1 o'clock-ish, then going to work and then repeating the same routine the next day. But it worked for me, and I managed to catch some nice fish on that second year that I was there. But it was slow going after that first fish that I caught at the beginning of March, and I didn't catch my next one until the second week in May, when I managed to catch that week 3 fish in a week, which I thought was a right result on the water, because you know, when there's only 15 carp in there, and they were tricky to tempt, these carp, they've been around for a long time, and once you caught one, generally they spooked off. So to get 3 that week was quite a good result. I got a couple of nice commons. I remember getting a nice 20-pound common from up by the dam end, and then catching, which I got on the footage of, and then catching another little common very close into the margins at the bottom of the path on the field side, which was another nice one to catch. And I finished things off that spring, that week I should say, with a fish known as the snub-nosed linear, which was one I really wanted, a really old carp that was just looked like it was about 90 years old. It had old growths all over it, like barnacles growing on it, loads of warts all over it. You could tell it had been caught quite a few times by different anglers over the years. And I remember seeing a picture of Lee Walton from Nutribaits holding that fish in one of the old Nutribaits news catalogues. And it was in a feature that Lee had written about him catching the biggin from there when there was night fishing on the lake. So that tells you how long ago that was. So it was probably about 10 years before I actually caught a biggin. But that fish was one that I really wanted, that snub-nosed linear. And on that day, we'd found them, myself and Daz, really close into a reed bed where we could actually pick out which fish was which. And they were coming in so close, you could almost touch them. And the footage I'm about to show you now, what you're looking at now, is of the fish just in front of the platform where they were all grouped up together. They generally swam around a lot of the time in one big group. You did see the odd one here and there that was cruising around on its own, but most of the time you'd see them all together, and there they were right on the edge of these reeds. And they didn't seem to be afraid at all of us. They did spook a few times close in, but we saw the biggin really close in. I remember seeing him come into this little gravelly area in the margins and just upending and blowing amongst the reeds, and me wishing that I should have had a rod out, but I didn't have a rod out in that area. I had them just to the other side of the reeds. And anyway, that week I did finish with the snub-nosed linear, which I've got some good footage of, which I caught just amongst the reeds. But it wasn't until the back end of summer when I managed to get my next bite from there, which was a mid-upper 20 pound mirror that I'd never seen pictures of until I actually caught it. And that fish was my last one from 2008, because the weed had really taken a grip on the lake, and certainly down by the dam end it was almost like a football field, and you just couldn't cast out. There was no way you'd been able to get any fish in. And so I decided there and then that I wouldn't go back to the lake until 2009. But obviously, on with the information that I'd had from 2 good seasons of fishing on there, I'd caught quite a few fishing out of the lake, and I was quite experienced on there, and so was Daz. He'd caught some nice fish himself up to sort of mid-30s. He'd had the big common out. He'd also caught himself starburst as well. So the two of us combined together really, and any information I had about the venue I'd pass on to him and he would do to me. And you know, sometimes when you're fishing lakes like Nostell, it is good to team up with somebody who's as dedicated as yourself, because Daz was definitely obsessed with that fish just as much as I was. And you know, I'd been going to the lake 3 or 4 times a week, and I decided in 2009 I needed to up my game, and I was going to go there virtually every single day apart from the weekends. I was going to go on a Monday through to a Friday. And you know, the one thing that I'd learned the most about the water was that it wasn't too difficult to catch the fish, but it was always hard to find where they were. So I decided in my mind that what I was going to do was fish the mornings on there, and then go to work, and then go back to the lake and try and find where the fish were in the evening, knowing that when I got back there the next day I'd know where they last were seen. So obviously the mileage from East Yorkshire to West Yorkshire wasn't something I wanted to contend with twice a day, so I'd fortunately managed to get myself a ticket for the Willow Syndicate, which was just starting to make a bit of a name for itself. And you know, that's a famous day ticket war that now contains all these lovely £40 Yorkshire carp. But back in those days there weren't many whackers in there, but I got myself a syndicate ticket on there, which wasn't too far away from where Nostell was. It was about 10 miles down the road, so I was certainly going to save on mileage and petrol money getting from there to the lake rather than from home to the lake. So you know, the plan then was to go to the lake in the morning, fish through till about midday, 1 o'clock ish, then go to work, then go back to Nostell, try and find where the fish were, then go to Willows, set up, do the night on there, and then go back to Nostell in the morning, and then repeat the process. So it sounds an awful lot of effort, but sometimes that's what carp fishing requires. You know, a wonder rig isn't always going to catch you the fish, and neither is the most fantastic bait out there. Sometimes it is just putting in a little bit of effort. And in 2009 I started off quite well, because I got a repeat capture of the snub-nosed linear. I caught that fish in the Back Bay, and I came across all of the fish in the Back Bay where they were sunning themselves from the early sort of springtime sun. And then my next capture was actually the day when I eventually caught the big one, and that was in middle of April. And on that day, I'd been putting in quite a lot of effort on the weeks leading up to it, and I'd not caught anything. I'd not really seen the fish at all. And I remember thinking to myself the day before, I need to get into that deeper water because that's where the fish are going to be, towards that deep end of the lake. And I went to work, and then I went to the lake to see if I could see any signs, and I'd not seen any signs. So when I left Nostell that day, it was right, head towards that down wall in the morning. And I then went to Willows and ended up fishing at the far end of Willows, where the fish were mostly congregated towards the island end, and it's the furthest walk from the car park. And it was absolutely teeming down when I was setting up, and I managed to catch myself a fish that night. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, the alarm went for me to pack up in the pitch black. And I remember thinking, don't go. It's too wet. You're not going to catch anything. It's been crap over the last few weeks. Wait till it all starts to warm up. But there was a little voice in the back of my mind going, no, you need to go. You need to pack up. And I packed up everything in the pitch black. It was soaking wet. Everything was chucking it down. It was all chucking it down, and everything was soaking wet. And I pushed my barrow past a couple of lads who later that day either messaged me on Facebook or whatever it was and saying, I heard you going this morning, fair play to you. And I pushed it through all the puddles up to the car park, loaded all the wet gear into the car, then drove the 10 miles to Nostell and pulled into the car park. There was no one there, and the sun was just starting to come up, and the rain finally stopped. And I pushed the barrow down the bank, thinking I need to head towards the dam wall. And just as I got to the dam wall, I got all my wet gear out. I was just pegging the brolly in to the ground to try and dry it out. And I remember looking up, and I don't know why I looked up, but I remember looking up and just looking towards the middle part of the lake, and I saw an absolutely huge fish just go whoosh like that. And you never saw the fish roll at all at Nostell, because there weren't many in there, and they seemed, because it was quite shallow, that they very rarely topped at all. You'd see them cruising around, but you wouldn't see them topping like that. And as soon as I saw that fish top, I was like, right, load everything back onto the barrow and get towards that area at the bottom of the path. And I just heard at the same time the chain on the gate go, knowing that there was another angler on his way down. So I absolutely packed away as quickly as I could and just legged it to where this swim was, right at the bottom of the path, and set my brolly up. I got my spot, I was happy, and my brolly was drying out, and I just then decided I was going to get the rods out and just drop them roughly in the area where I'd seen that fish. And the rods had probably been out for about an hour when one of them was away, and I take again on Nostell. I was well chuffed with that. But I was a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, because it was a recapture of the little linear again. So knowing that when you've had one fish on there, the chances of you getting another one was probably very slim. I thought that my moment had gone, but whatever reason, I put the rods back out, that rod back out, sat there, and I remember Vince the bailiff coming round to me and seeing me and saying, how you getting on? I said, I'd had one. I was going to stay on the lake for another couple of hours, get through till about 1 o'clock and then go to work. And Vince knew my procedure. He knew me well enough to know what I was like, and he went on his way, went across to the far side, and then I just started to pack away a few items, and the sun was getting nice and warm now, and I was just down to my last items going back into the rucksack, and my middle rod just dropped back right to the bottom, and I thought, oh God, here we go. Probably a little bream or something like that, and I walked towards the rod and I just lifted the rod out the rest, tightened up to it, and the next minute the rod was just wrenched right over. Oh God, and I'd caught quite a few fish out of Nostell by this time, and knowing that the fish hardly did anything because they was that old, I was like, oh my God, what's on the end of this? And I just had to, because I fish off the clutch, I just had to let the line off the clutch and let the tension off the clutch as much as it could, because whatever was on the end was just absolutely going. It would go, and it was like, oh, I'm not kidding you, it was like I'd hit a whale and he just couldn't stop it. It was just flying along 20 yards, 30 yards. And by now I'd seen where the line was pointing towards, and I was looking at this great big V going across the lake, and my mind was just going, this can only be one fish. And it just kept going and going and going. And eventually, I don't know how many yards it's taken, 40 yards of line, 50 yards of line, I just heard this almighty splash on the surface of the water as its tail, an angry fish just slapped down on the surface of the water. And then, and only then, did it then start to swim back towards me, and it just came ever so slowly in an arch. Started going from the right to the left, and I was taking a little bit of line, getting a little bit of line back, and it just kept going, and brain was going, this has got to be the big one. I'm getting excited now thinking about it. This has got to be the big one. It's the one, it's the moment, this is it. Don't cock up. And I just watched the line cutting through the flat calm of the surface, and it just gently came towards me, and it must have taken about 15-20 minutes from the point of when its tail had hit the surface to when I got it close into the margins. And by now I'd got my chest waders on, I'd got the landing net in my hands, and I'd waded out to the edge of the reeds on the left hand side, and I was just on the edge of the reeds where it was up to sort of thigh depth of water, and I just rested the landing net on the edge of the reeds and watched this line just cutting from right to left, as eventually bit by bit I gained a metre at a time, and just desperate to get that sighting of that fish, knowing that in my brain I was connected to the one that I was after, and I've been after it for 3 years, and 2.5 seasons, so to say. And bit by bit he came in, I was gaining a bit of line, Oh, I hope it's that fish, I hope it's that fish, I hope it's that, don't fall off, please don't fall off. And then I got my first sighting of him, and it was clearly that fish. I saw these massive scales on its shoulder, and if I'm honest, for that last sort of 10 or 15 yards he didn't really do a great deal. I think he'd spent most of his energy right out there on that initial take when he took so much line off me. But at the time I was using a really large Fox landing net, and it was probably more designed for pike fishing than it was carp fishing. But the fish got closer and closer in, and I just guided him into the net and peered down into the bottom of the net and thinking, that's him, that's the one, that's the carp that I've been after for the last so many months. And I didn't feel any relief or emotion or anything other than I'd finally got him, and knowing that I put in so much effort, and knowing that my mate Daz had put in so much effort as well. There was only one person I wanted to ring at that moment, and that was Daz. So I propped the landing net up into the margins and made sure it was secure, and there was no way that fish was going to jump out of it or get out of it. And then I just grabbed my phone and rang Daz, and I think the conversation didn't even go, all right mate, how you doing? It was just, I've got him. And he was out with his missus, I think, at the time, and I could tell from his reaction that he was almost as chuffed as I was to get this fish, because it had not been caught for almost 2 years from the moment when we'd first stepped foot on the lake to when I eventually caught it. And instead I rang Vince, who was the bailiff, who was on the opposite bank, and he kindly came over and did some great footage of that fish, and also captured some fantastic photographs for me. So it was a great moment, great memory, and it was a pity Daz wasn't there. But a nice little ending to this story is that after I caught the big one and he weighed in at 43.6 for me, only a few months later Daz eventually went on to catch that fish as well for himself. So both of us got rewarded by the lake in the end. But this particular fish, when it comes down to effort, is certainly the top of the tree. And I'd like to thank you all for listening to me over the last half an hour talking about that fish, and I hope you guys can also get some special memories out of your fishing, because that's what fishing's all about, is sharing those special memories. So I'll end now with just a quick look at the bit of footage that Vince did for me of me returning this special fish. But thanks a lot for listening. What an absolute legendary fish. There you go. She is. There she is. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Lovely fish. Let's put it back.